Hey everybody, it is Tuesday and you are back in the kitchen cooking with me, Evie. Hope you guys are all having a good week and that the weather is being kind to you and you're staying healthy. And one of the ways to stay healthy is to eat healthy. And today we're going to be making a wonderful soup called Gypsy Soup. And I was curious, I wanted to look up and see where that name came from. Why Gypsy Soup, right? Well, turns out it's from an old folk tale, much like stone soup, where an old woman puts together some soup, but this time it's based on a recipe that was handed down to her during the times that her family had famine. And basically it's a soup that's made out of nothing, out of whatever you can find. Luckily, these ingredients that are here in this soup are healthy for you and delicious tasting too. So what I'm going to do, and before I get started, this recipe in particular comes from the Moosewood cookbook, Moosewood Café. Moosewood Café is a vegetarian cafe, or restaurant, I should say, that is found in Ithaca, New York. It was founded by a Cornell graduate in the early 70s. And I'm sure you've seen the cookbooks around. They've been, a mainstay in my kitchen for years and years and years. And this happens to be one of my favorites. It uses a lot of my favorite spices, a lot of anti-inflammatory spices. Nice thing about this recipe is it is naturally low in sugar. We're not adding any sugar to it. It is naturally sweet because it has sweet potatoes in it, it has onions in it, it has bell pepper, sweet bell pepper in it as well. In fact, it probably would have gone really well in my new cooking program that's coming up in a couple weeks, which is called Rethink What You Eat and Age Younger. And I named it that because of all the anti-inflammatory properties it has, one of which is that it is low in sugar. Sugar is one of the worst offenders when it comes to inflammation in our body. Yeah, it's not just about tooth decay and gaining weight. It actually adds to heart disease, diabetes, all the things that we attributed to other factors early on. Oh, this onion is strong. So while I was talking to you, I was actually cutting up 2 onions that are going to go into my saute pot. I'm going to put a heat underneath my Dutch oven. So I have basically 1 large pot here. And I'm going to start getting that heated up. I'm going to add in about a tablespoon of olive oil. And then I'm going to add in my onions. I'm going to chop up a few stalks, 2 stalks of celery is what's required. Now, in keeping with Gypsy Soup, this is kind of the end of a bunch of celery that I had in the refrigerator. So I am actually going to use up a bunch of it, cutting off some of these brown ends. Yeah, it's still good for us. May not look as good, but it's just as flavorful as before. So I'm just going to chop that up into bite-sized pieces. And it calls for 2 stalks. I'm using 4 very small stalks because it was right at the end of that bunch. I want to make sure it's all good there. Yeah, okay. So I have my onion, I have my celery, and I want to, I chopped up ahead of time my sweet potato. All right, let me add some oil to that pot so it can start heating up. I don't have my cook plate here the way I normally do, which would make this a lot easier, so bear with me if you will. All right, so I now have 1 sweet potato cut up. And the original recipe calls for peeling this sweet potato. I actually like to leave the peel on because that is where a lot of the antioxidants are and a lot of the fiber. So I leave that in. If you don't like that, you can take it out, but I'm telling you, it will have more nutritional value if you leave it in. Fiber is great for curbing sugar cravings because it helps keep our blood sugar levels equal or level during the day, rather than having those peaks and falls that cause that roller coaster that causes the cravings and eventually lead to chronic disease. So let me add in now the sweet potato to my pot. I'm sorry, the onion and celery to my pot. And I'm going to turn that down and give it a stir. All right, so while that is just browning, I'm going to leave that in just till the onions start to wilt. I'm going to add in my sweet potatoes as well while it's cooking. And I chop that sweet potato into, I would say, 1/2 inch squares, maybe a little bit less. Could be, it's not quite a 1/4 inch, but 1/2 inch cubes. And now what I'd like to do is add in some garlic. So I'm going to add in about 3 cloves of garlic. These are small, so I'm going to add in an extra one. Garlic is good for us. Again, high in antioxidants. It adds a lot of flavor, so we're not tempted to be reaching for salt to flavor up a dish. It also can help with the sweetness of a dish. Now, I like to add my garlic after the onion and other vegetables have had a chance to start softening, because I don't want to overcook my garlic and have it bitter. All right, just wipe this down. All right, and as you saw, what I did was I just smashed my garlic cloves to flatten them out. That also helps me take the paper off the outside of the clove. And now I'm going to just give this a nice chop. All right, let me just check on that onion. So this is a new stove for me, and I'm just kind of getting used to the temperature readings on it. It's a little bit different than my other stove that I have. It's a little bit higher. I started out on a high heat, and I turned it down to probably about medium. At home, I would normally do like a medium high for this point, but always checking because I don't want anything to burn in there. If I find that things are starting to stick, I can always add a little bit of water to the mix just to loosen the bottom and loosen the brown bits. All right, and I'm just going to add in now my garlic. Let me give that a stir again. I'm going to just give that a little bit of water. Just add in. I have some filtered water here. And I put in about 1/2 cup of water there, just to loosen up the bits on the bottom, as I said. So I'm going to up my temperature a little bit because I added that water, and I'm going to let it cook for a little bit. While that's happening, I'm going to chop up one pepper. I picked a yellow pepper just because I like the color of it. It's also nice and sweet. Add some sweetness to the dish. And I'm going to dice this again into about 1/2 inch dice here. Now, the way I like to cut my pepper is I cut off the ends, like so. All right. Cut off the bottom. Then the circular part that I had, I cut in half. And then I like to cut it into French fries, right? That shape, about 1/2 inch wide. All right, and then turn it 90 degrees and chop again. Do this to the other half. Sometimes if there's a little bit of white on that inside, I will chop that off too. All right. And you can see I chopped through a lot of pieces at one time. And I then will chop down the end by just slicing through and making little French fry shapes again, turning it 90 degrees and chopping through again. There you go. My top, I made good use of that too. So I'm just going to slice through it again. And then I'll end up with some pieces that are already small enough. I can put those to the side, but then I'll turn the longer ones and chop through them again as well. So that I have nice, even dice of my sweet pepper. Just going to put that to the side for now. All right, now let me check on what's cooking on the stove. This is good. I'm going to up it again to medium-high heat. So just to go over again what I have now in the pot: 2 chopped onions, 2 diced onions, about 2 stalks of celery, about 3 cloves of garlic, all well chopped. I've added those in. They are cooking away. Now, what I would like to do is add in my spices. And here's the other anti-inflammatory part of this dish. A lot of anti-inflammatory spices. We've got cinnamon, paprika, turmeric, really good for inflammation, very good for your liver, helps with liver support, some cayenne for a little heat, right? So, we're going to add in, to start, 2 teaspoons of our paprika. All right, let's see. And I'm going to show this pot to you as soon as I add these in and stir them up so you can see what it looks like. So I've added in my paprika and now my turmeric. I'm going to add in 1 teaspoon of my turmeric. Now, if you have fresh turmeric to add in, oh, that would be great. General rule is to use about 3 times as much fresh as you do dry. So I'd probably add about a tablespoon of fresh chopped turmeric if I had it. But I don't, so I'm using the dried powder. So that's good. My cayenne, I'm going to add in about 1/8 of a teaspoon. I don't want to add in too much too soon. And I'm kind of a wimp. Everybody knows I'm kind of a wimp when it comes to a lot of heat in a dish. So I'm going to put in about 1/8 of a teaspoon. All wonderful orange, yellow colors. Oh, I love this. And remember, I always say the more color, the more health there is in the dish. And yeah, we're not talking about Skittles or M&Ms. That's a totally different story. And I'm now going to add in about 1/8 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. All right. Ooh, such a wonderful aroma that's coming off of that stove. Here, let me just turn these around so you can see again what we added in. Go. So, let me just grab this off. Oh, it smells delicious. Got a little bit of burning on the bottom of that pot. I need to get to learn this stove a little bit better. Oh well. But let me show you what we have. There we go. You see the steam coming off of it? All right. Let me put it back on. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it and turn it down. And get that started right away. What I would like to do now is, and here's the thing, we're not adding broth. We're just going to add water to it. So in keeping with that Gypsy Soup theme, where it was in times of poverty, and it was, you know, whatever you could find went into that bowl. Instead of broth, we're adding water. I would think if you wanted to add some more flavor to it, you could add in a vegetable broth. But it's going to have a wonderful flavor because of all of the goodness and all of the seasonings that we're adding in. All right, so I've added in my water now. I want to add in a bay leaf. Let's see, where did my bay leaf go? There we go. So let me add in 1 bay leaf as well. Let's see, a good size one. All right, I have 2 halves. We'll put that in. It's amazing how much flavor a bay leaf will add to a dish. Okay, so that's added in. Let me give it another stir. That vent is very loud. I just turned it down. All right, so now what I want to do is I will open up my chickpeas and drain those. Rinse and drain those. I love this pull tab top. I found some low sodium organic, like that. Let me just grab a strainer. All right, and luckily I have a sink right over here. So I'm just going to rinse those, let them drain for a minute. And while that's going on, I'm going to open up some, now the recipe called for San Marzano, or Marzano tomatoes. So that's what I got. And I actually found some organic ones, but it was in a big can. The recipe calls for a 15-ounce can, and 15-ounce garbanzo beans as well. So you can see the difference in the can sizes, right? So what I will do is use a half of this, or a little bit more than half. Let's see, what's in this? This is 28, so a little bit more than half. And these are whole tomatoes. Oh, no, yeah, whole peeled tomatoes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the container from my food processor. Now, you can cut these by hand. I just thought it would be a little bit easier if I just put them into, let me just turn this down to get it to go to a simmer. Nice. Yum. Ooh, yum, 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 yum. So now it's really interesting. The color of the soup at this point is more of an orangey brown. I'm sorry you can't see the liquid so well. But let me, you know what? Let's just ladle it out for you so you can see. So let me show you what we have here. All right. Well, here we go. I wasn't very successful with that. I apologize. But while we have the pot over here, let's add in our chickpeas. Why not? And we'll put that back on this fire and let that cook. Okay. Spilled a little bit here. Okay. So, what I was saying with the tomatoes. So I'm going to use about 2/3 of this can. And the Marzano, San Marzano, are plum tomatoes. There we go. And I'm just going to give them a quick pulse. That's it. I'm going to take one more. That's about 2/3 of the can. Okay, this is what I'm using. All right, and I'm just going to bring it over here to my base. And again, I didn't have a cord to bring it over here. I'm sorry. So I'm just going to quickly pulse it over here. So that there's still some chunks to it, but not a fine puree. All right. And then I'm going to add that right into my soup. Along with the bell peppers. All right, let me bring this over. I'm going to give it a stir. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to spoon this out then into a glass bowl so you can see what it's looking like at this point. Because now what we're going to do is just let it simmer for about 10-15 minutes. So the bowl that I have is rather large. And here's my ladle. But I wanted you to see the beautiful colors that are in this dish. Look at that. Just beautiful. There you go. All right, let me add it back to my pot here. I'm going to put the lid on it, turn it down to a simmer, and just let it simmer, as I said, for 15, you know what, maybe 20 minutes. I just want the sweet potatoes to get nice and soft along with the peppers. And the sweet potatoes right now are still fairly firm. All right. Let me just put that back on the stove. I'm going to turn it down, as I said, to a simmer. And just let that cook for a few more minutes. And there you have it. That is the Gypsy soup. So, you know, I would say, you know, experiment with different ingredients. Find out what, you know, Look in your refrigerator, see what you have. If you mix it in with those spices give it such a nice flavor. One thing I did forget to do is add in some salt. Now, the original recipe calls for about a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to add in, let's see. I have some pink Himalayan salt here. And I'm going to add in, I've got about 3/4 of a teaspoon. And I'm going to add in a few pinches of black ground pepper. Now I'm going to let this simmer, and I will taste it again and see if it needs a little bit more salt. Whether soups tend to take a lot of salt, more than you think, but still less than if you buy a processed soup. So I will taste it again. I'll probably see whether it could take a little bit more cayenne, if I want to have a little bit more zing to it. And again, as I said, a little bit maybe of salt and pepper. But that's it. Real easy, real simple, so easy to do, so healthy for you. It is, as I said, it's a naturally sweet dish that has no added sugars to it, and yet is very satisfying. So if you ever have a little sweet craving, a little bit of soup is not a bad thing to have. Sometimes when we do, we're hungry, and this will be a nice, nutritious snack to have as well. So I hope you enjoyed the cooking class. If you are interested in cooking this way and feeling better by eating anti-inflammatory foods that are low in sugar, by all means, look into the information on my program that's coming up. I have put it down in the comments section. It is called Rethink What You Eat and Age Younger. All right, so here's to aging younger another week, right? And I will see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye for now. I'll post the soup when it's done in a photo so you can see what it looks like. Take care. Bye-bye.